Bills Mafia. On today's Air Raid Hour pregame, we'll be breaking down what we expect to see from the Bills this afternoon versus the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Divisional round, plus previewing key matchups and handing out our pregame superlatives. But first,
welcome to the Air Raid Hour, a Cover One Network podcast. Here are your hosts, Judge Mathis and Tilt Money.
welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Cover One pregame show presented by Picasso's Pizza. My name is Steve Mathis, joined as always by my co-host Dave Tilton, and we got a show for you today as the Buffalo Bills square off for the third time in 4 years in the playoffs against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'll tell you what, Dave, maybe the Ravens win yesterday was actually a good omen for the Buffalo Bills, because I don't know, all week I had been having this sickly feeling that the Texans were going to pull off some kind of upset, that today's game was going to be for home field advantage in the AFC Championship game, and that somehow, some way, the Kansas City Chiefs would find a way to make it home for a chance at another Super Bowl. So at least this morning, I have at least 5% less of that sickly feeling that Patrick Mahomes is inevitable.
Well, and the other part of it is like there's the Bills side of it too, right? The added pressure potentially of saying, like, if you win this game against the Chiefs, then you're hosting an AFC Championship game against the Houston Texans, which obviously didn't happen. Now, glass half full, glass half empty, in whoever ends up winning this game will have to go to Baltimore and play that number one seed Ravens team who looks really good. So if the chance that the Bills do lose this game, at least it will make things more difficult for Patrick Mahomes and co. Because let me just tell you, I do not want to see Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in yet another Super Bowl. So whatever happens today, if the Bills do lose, I will be rooting for the Ravens next week. Obviously, we want the Bills to win today and go on the road against the Baltimore team where, again, there will be less pressure on the Bills in that game should the Bills win going into Baltimore than if they were going to be hosting the AFC Championship game in Orchard Park. Now, we'll see what happens.
There are fans that are extremely overconfident or confident heading into games every weekend. Like, we'll be playing a 1-15 opponent, and I will still be that guy who just is completely on edge, completely fearing the worst. And despite that, me being that guy, me being that fan, when the Bills do end up losing some of these games, I'm still one of the most disappointed too at the same time, even though my expectations weren't as high as others. So I'm looking for anything I can this morning to make me feel better. And I found one tweet that really made me feel good, and it's a statistic. So there appears to be a correlation between Kansas City Chief playoff victories and the University of Kansas basketball team playing the University of West Virginia, because on January 19, 2019, Kansas lost at West Virginia in a college basketball game, and the Chiefs lost the AFC Championship game the next day. On February 6, 2021, the University of Kansas lost at West Virginia, and the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl the next day. So guess what happened just a couple of days ago? Kansas lost at West Virginia. So is that trend going to continue today? Are the Chiefs going to lose in the AFC divisional round to the Buffalo Bills? Man, I hope so.
Yeah, and I mean, look, the storylines, a lot of the storylines this week have been about the head-to-head matchups between the Chiefs and the Bills over the past couple years. And you look at it from just pure games perspective. There's Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, 3-3 apiece head-to-head. Statistics are incredible for both, but obviously you got Patrick Mahomes with that 2-0 record and the Chiefs in that 2-0 record against the Bills in the playoffs. Now, since the 13 seconds fiasco, right, the Bills have played in Arrowhead twice in the regular season and have won both games. So since that 13 seconds fiasco, the Bills have won every game they've played against the Chiefs. Now get to play the Chiefs at home for Patrick Mahomes' first true road playoff games. So, look, it's still the Chiefs. It's still going to be a really tough game. I had said on Twitter, I think this still could be the toughest game the Bills have, even beyond today, if they were to win, and caught some flack for that. But I think there is a bit of a hurdle here in the postseason of trying to clear and get over this Kansas City Chiefs team, even though you have proven you can beat them on the road as well. But when it comes playoff time, you need to prove you can beat them.
Yeah, if you look at it, Patrick Mahomes is splits. He's actually better statistically on the road than he is at home, but the playoffs are a completely different beast than the regular season. So the Buffalo Bills finally get the Kansas City Chiefs in our building in Orchard Park. Yesterday sort of illustrated in that Texans-Ravens game the impact that fans can have on a football game. And I know the Texans are a younger team, but you saw a lot of pre-snap penalties from the Houston Texans yesterday. Buffalo is going to need all of Bill's Mafia today trying to induce some of those pre-snap penalties. I feel like guys like Jawan Taylor could be pretty susceptible to it.
Yeah, and I mean they documented it pretty well last week against the Dolphins, right? Jawan Taylor, the most penalized offensive player in the league this year. And so putting the Chiefs behind the chains, third and longs, really disadvantageous third down situations, long distance, like that's going to be big today, right? And if the Mafia in the stands can kind of influence the game a bit and more than a bit, that's obviously a huge advantage because the Bills have had to endure the same on the opposite side the past several times they played the Chiefs. So,
all right, so let's get into it now, and let's start with the injuries and the weather. Temperature's looking pretty good, hovering in the 20s. It's going to be cloudy by the time the game kicks off. No precipitation. The real feel is going to be in the teens with winds up to 10 miles per hour. So pretty good for Buffalo in January. Obviously don't have all that snow to deal with. And I've made it pretty clear I don't agree with the way the Buffalo Bills and Johnny King have been compensating those who are shoveling. But kudos to every single Bills fan who was out there shoveling the stadium yesterday. It looks great, and it looks like everybody will have a clear seat for game time. So no excuse for the Mafia to go out there and not be loud and proud this evening.
Yeah, even last week, right? The field was in good shape. The field obviously going to be in good shape again this week. Generally surrounding the seating and everything should be in better shape even than it was last week. It certainly looks like that from the pictures and videos we've seen and the people who went out there and shoveled in. And that was really, the people also as well who were kind of sending video updates from the stadium from shoveling. Like, hats off to all those people, right? I mean, they did an excellent job, and it really just shows kind of the support that this city has for the team. And Josh comes in here, says Houston looked like an undisciplined team yesterday. KC's offense has been undisciplined all season. This crowd is going to cause some penalties for sure. And you just wonder, right, with a team like Houston, obviously a lot of pre-snap penalties, and they're a young team, and they maybe don't have the clout, right, that a Kansas City team does. And we'll see if that factors into whether or not, like, I know pre-snap stuff is pretty hard to not call, right, if it's obvious, but other things that happen during the game will be interesting to see how this game is officiated. We know it's Hockey's crew on the call today, which hasn't been great for the Bills in past times that him and his crew have officiated their games.
Looking at the injury report, out for the Buffalo Bills, Gabriel Davis, who's had some big games in his past against the Kansas City Chiefs. Christian Benford is out. Balin Spector is out. Taylor Rapp is out. The Buffalo Bills have elevated from the practice squad once again Andy Isabella and AJ Klein. Questionable are Terrel Bernard, Rasul Douglas, Taron Johnson, and Sam Martin. The latter of the three look like they will be ready to go in this football game. Douglas said he felt like he could have gone last week. Taron Johnson said he's in the final stages of concussion protocol, and the Bills didn't elevate a corner, which tells me that they probably feel pretty confident that he will play. And then the Bills signed Matt Haack this week to the practice squad and then released Matt Haack this week from the practice squad. So that gives you an indication that Sam Martin is going to go. So if I were to predict inactives this week, Gabriel Davis, Balin Spector, Taylor Rapp, and Christian Benford are my first four. My fifth of the first five would probably be Alec Anderson once again. And then you have two more inactive spots to fill if you put AJ Klein and AJ Epinesa into the active game day roster. For me, one of them will likely be Poona Ford or Linval Joseph. And the other it's either going to be Kingsley Jonathan or Terrel Bernard. I wouldn't be surprised if Terrel Bernard starts today, but that maybe 5-10 snaps into the game, if it's just not feeling it, if it's just not working for him on that ankle, we see AJ Klein inserted at middle linebacker. What are your thoughts on Terrel Bernard? Because I think the Bills have the roster spot to give it to him, even if he's feeling like 50-50.
They do. They have the roster spot to give it to him, but then you start to think about like those DTs, and obviously the Chiefs gonna have Pacheco back for this game. Obviously the Bills have Daquan for this game, which they didn't have last game. And you wonder, like, the Chiefs have been running the ball better since Pacheco's been back in the lineup. Would they want to have that extra DT? Probably a consideration. I personally, if Terrel Bernard's only gonna, like, let's say like we think he can go out there and gut it out, like what percentage is he actually going to be? And given the way that AJ Klein, really played pretty well last week, and I know it's a different animal this week against the Chiefs, risk of re-aggravation to me is not something I would want to take the chance of. I know it's a win or go home situation, but if you're only going to end up getting 5 to 10 snaps out of Bernard and then he becomes just someone who's standing on the sideline all game, I don't know, man. I almost would rather, I'd almost rather rest him up and see if we can get through this game without him. And I know that's maybe not the attitude a lot of people would have, because it's like, hey, this is the season. But if he's not going to be, if he's not going to help, right? If he's going to be a liability with that injury, then you kind of have to consider maybe making him inactive today.
Yeah, to your point, I think Linval Joseph will probably be the one active over Poona Ford, just because you have Terrell Smith, you have Creed Humphrey, you have Joe Thuney in the middle of that Buffalo Bills defense. Linval played pretty well, in my opinion, against Pittsburgh last week, helping to shut down guys like Najee and Jalen Warren. And you have Isaiah Pacheco to deal with this week, who wasn't available when the Buffalo Bills played the Kansas City Chiefs last time. So Isaiah Pacheco is a guy we're going to talk about a lot when we start previewing the Chiefs offense, as probably the catalyst of this Kansas City Chiefs offense. So it'll be really interesting to see. I think this will be a true game time decision for Terrel Bernard. I think he'll be testing it out pregame. I think he'll be warming up pregame, and then the Buffalo Bills will make a decision from there. But if he cannot go, it'll likely be AJ Klein and Tyrel Dodson, with really your only real backup being Dorian Williams, as Balin Spector is also out. And then you definitely don't want to get to Tyler Matakevich having to play linebacker for you if you're the Buffalo Bills. So that's why they didn't even have another linebacker on the practice squad if they wanted to, right? So it's just, it'll be super interesting to see what the Buffalo Bills decide there with Terrel Bernard. I mean, Kingsley Jonathan, are his couple of special team snaps really going to be worth it to you? Poona Ford, are his couple of snaps in the D-line rotation going to be worth it to you? Maybe a guy like Terrel Bernard, like even if he's an emergency backup, maybe he gets the activation today, just because you don't want to throw Tyler Matakevich out there if guys go down. So I have a gut feeling Terrel Bernard plays today, but I have a gut feeling he is active today, but I also have a gut feeling he doesn't play a lot today. So it'll be really interesting to see what goes on there. Chiefs, they're an active list. Derek Nottie, that's a big one for them in the middle, one of their best run stuffers. Sky Moore is out. He's been on IR. He's just not ready to come back from IR yet. Wanya Morris is out. He had been taking snaps at left tackle from Donovan Smith, who's been struggling all year. And then the late addition to the out list is Kadarius Toney. So if the Chiefs score a touchdown late in the game today, it will likely count. So don't get your hopes up, Bills fans. Questionable, a couple of late additions, and it's never a good sign when guys are late additions to the injury report. And this is a big one here. Willie Gay with a neck injury. Late addition, questionable. Charles Omenihu, their big free agent addition on the defensive line this offseason, who's been being outsnapped by Mike Dana, questionable with an illness. And then Justin Ross has been LP all week and is questionable with a hamstring injury. Elevated from the practice squad for the Chiefs, Mike Pennell, Matt Dickerson. Obviously, that has to do a lot with Derek Nottie, but that also could do with Charles Omenihu as well. So the Chiefs, they've got some injuries, but they certainly are not as banged up right now as the Buffalo Bills.
No, not as banged up. And I mean, they still have Chris Jones, right? They still have George Karlaftis on that defensive line. They still have Nick Bolton. So even if they're missing Willie Gay, even if they're missing Omenihu, they have horses on both levels of that defense. And obviously, the secondary fully healthy for them, which has been an absolute, gold mine for them this year. Pains me to kind of continue to see Trent McDuffie play as well as he does. But yeah, the Chiefs look okay. Kadarius Toney out. Like, look, I mean, the Chiefs wide receiver group as a whole really hasn't been like the threat, right, that it has been in past years for them. So like that offense is going to funnel through Pacheco. It's going to funnel through Travis Kelce. It's going to funnel through Rashee Rice. So Kadarius Toney being out, he's not even one of their top 3 offensive options. I think a guy like Gabe Davis being out obviously is more impactful if you look at equivalents, right, to the Kansas City Chiefs. So I don't think the Chiefs are necessarily going to be missing Toney that much in this game.
All right, before we get into all of the various different offensive and defensive matchups, a quick word here from the guys over at the Cover One Buffalo podcast.
Many people ask us the best way to support us here at Cover One, and that is to sign up to become a Cover One Pass member. That contribution helps give us the access to all the data and information we use to create the content that you love.
And I think most importantly, brings you into our community of insiders. It's a great community based on Slack. I know a lot of people don't want to be on social media anymore or be in on those conversations. We bring all of it to you right in our great community of educated fans. And most importantly, you get access to our content creators.
Even better than that, everybody loves merch. You get awesome t-shirts, a cool decal, and a letter from the Cover One team signed directly to you.
All for $60. That gets you the entire season, next year's free agency and draft. $60. Click the link in the description. Cover One Insider. Become one today.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Buffalo Bills offense going up against the Kansas City Chiefs defense. And I was listening to the Athletic Football Show this week with Nate Tyson, Robert Mays, and they were talking about, hey, like for the 3rd time in 4 years, we get Mahomes versus Allen. And despite the fact that it is Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, the biggest storyline in this football game is probably Josh Allen versus Steve Spagnuolo, because Steve Spagnuolo for decades now, it feels like, even going back to those Giants days, has just been an elite defensive coordinator in this league. Maybe not such a great head coach, but just an absolute elite defensive mind who brings a different game plan every time he plays guys. No matter how many times he plays them, he always seems to be able to surprise guys. And he's finally got the dogs on that Kansas City Chiefs defense to do some of the things that he wants to do. They've got Chris Jones and George Karlaftis up front. They've got Nick Bolton and Willie Gay, even though he's questionable now with an injury, in the middle of that defense. They got Leo Chanel for their pressure packages. They got guys like Justin Reed. They got Snead, and they got McDuffie in that secondary. Looking at some of their tendencies, 4th most 7-man boxes, 8th highest blitz rate, and 8th highest percentage of 2 deep shell in the NFL this season from the Kansas City Chiefs. They come at you. They come at you from every different angle. They vary in disguise the ways in which they blitz you and rush you. So for Josh Allen today, I feel like he needs to be ready for pressure, and his turnovers or lack of turnovers are going to be key. To me, Josh Allen's pocket elusivity is either going to be the antidote for this Kansas City Chiefs defense, or his possible turnovers are going to be what sets the tone and ultimately leads to us losing this football game. So what Josh Allen do you think we see today?
Yeah, it's a great conversation. I mean, Josh Allen's obviously made big plays on the ground against the Chiefs in moments in the past as well. To me, with that blitz, that heavy expectation of pressure and blitz, I mean, Josh Allen has to be ready to use everything he's got in the tool belt today. We saw it last week with the running plays against the Steelers. That's got to be an X factor today. You mentioned the turnovers, clean game last week against the Steelers. That needs to continue. This Chiefs defense, they are as good as they are, right? 7th overall DVOA defense, 2nd best in points per game allowed, 2nd best in yards per game allowed. They're 5th worst in turnover differential, right? They're minus 11. So as good as they are at stopping points and stopping yards, they still don't really take the ball away a ton. L'Jarius Sneed is their leader in interceptions with 2. He's the only one on the team with multiple interceptions. So the Bills really need to take care of the football against a team who is really solid in not allowing points and not allowing yards, but doesn't necessarily take the ball away a ton. So you're right. A clean game from Josh Allen has to be in the cards because it is not going to be super easy to score points against this defense today, and you cannot give the ball away in your own territory or otherwise. So, yeah, I mean, last week was a good, efficient game. Gonna need to have that again this week from Josh.
Saw a stat this week. The Buffalo Bills are now 17-0 in Josh Allen's career when he doesn't turn the ball over. So let's make that 18-0 today. Zach Hilton comes in and says, let's see how Spags responds to our run game. Not sure he has the horses without their best interior defensive lineman, their best run stuffing interior defensive lineman, and Derek Nottie make Chris Jones chase Cook. And that was the next thing that I had on my list. Biggest takeaways from this game, or biggest things to look at heading into this game. James Cook, not Josh Allen, may be the key to the Buffalo Bills winning this football game. The Chiefs are 5th in DVOA versus the pass. They are 27th versus the run. The Bills ran the ball 28 times for 118 yards in their Week 14 matchup. It was 10 for 58 for Cook. It was 10 for 32 and a touchdown for Josh Allen. Cook also pitched in 5 for 83 and a touchdown in the receiving game. I think whoever involves their running backs more effectively today could have the edge because, again, the Kansas City Chiefs did not have Isaiah Pacheco in that first matchup.
Yeah, and I said on Twitter earlier this week, the talk's been all about Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, but in my mind, this game is going to come down to which team runs the ball more effectively, which team's better on converting those third and shorts, which team is better at keeping, the possession, making these defenses stay on the field. James Cook, like you mentioned, efficient game on the ground last time out, but the Chiefs have Isaiah Pacheco this time around, which is there's nothing to, that's going to probably be my respect you player, right? And this is a limelight type of opportunity for this Bills offensive line. The Bills offensive line amongst the Bills content creator community, amongst Bills media, amongst Bills beat, has been getting their praise, right? Rightfully so this year. The Bills have started the same unit every game. It is time, and it is an opportunity for this Bills offensive line, the run game, to be in the limelight, right? And to get those millions of people watching today to really understand what this team's all about when it comes to the physicality and the swagger and the efficiency that this line can bring and neutralizing this Chiefs defensive line with Chris Jones that is still somewhat undermanned. And I think that, to me, if this Bills offensive line has a plus day in run blocking and they are moving people like they did in that Dallas game, that to me is key for the Bills today. And likewise on the other side, right, for the Chiefs, but especially for this Bills offensive line. You have to go out there, exert your will at home, demoralize the Chiefs defensive front, continue to be efficient with the run game, and make sure that James Cook is obviously a huge part of that, and being efficient, right? And the Bills have to stick with it today, right? Like they've done in prior weeks. It has to be a huge part of the game today, in my opinion.
Yeah, looking at it, we have a comment here that says the Chiefs' defensive stats stink on the road. Bills Mafia is going to be the difference. Mahomes is going to hate third downs. Yeah, getting guys into third down situations, third and long situations, which has a lot to do with shutting down the run, right? Getting Patrick Mahomes in 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 9s, 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 11s, as opposed to 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s, where guys like Travis Kelce can really make a difference. So that is one thing. And then if you're the Bills, you want to be in those 3rd and short situations, because if you're in those 3rd and short situations, you have a Josh Allen, right, who can not only throw the football, but he can carry the football as well. So if you're the Buffalo Bills, you want to be in those 3rd and shorts, so you have all the options available to you to be able to pick up those first downs. My biggest concern in this game, and you brought up Sean Hockley earlier, and I don't want to get too much into like Sean Hockley and his record versus the Bills, and his record versus the Chiefs, and this or that. I don't want to get into that, but I will say this, and it's not so much about the refereeing as it is the Kansas City Chiefs. I've been watching the Kansas City Chiefs play for years now against the Buffalo Bills. Their secondary is taught to legitimately hold on every play. Their secondary is taught to grab and make contact and to interfere on every single play. It's that old Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom style of defense. And their philosophy is, we're going to do it on every single play, and we're just going to dare the referees to call it. Now, this is something that's probably going to make me enraged throughout the entirety of the football game, because we're going to see guys like Stephon Diggs and Dalton Kincaid, etc., with cornerbacks absolutely draped over them for the entirety of this football game. And it'll be interesting to see how the officials police it, because I think they do a pretty good job in the regular season policing it, but that whistle tends to get swallowed in the playoffs. And that's probably my biggest concern is the Chiefs have this philosophy of, we're just going to hold you on every play. We are just going to pass interfere on every play. And I'm a little fearful the referees are just not going to call it. That's what made L'Jarius Sneed so good. No offense, L'Jarius Sneed is overrated. He is as good as he is because he gets away with a lot of shit.
Yeah, he does. And then we go back to sort of the opening topic of the Bills offense and Josh Allen and kind of facing the pressure and limiting the turnovers. Like, these receivers for the Bills and the tight ends are going to have to step up and make contested catches today, right? You cannot be you're going to be draped. There's probably going to times it's not going to be called, right? And if you compare it to like watching like The Last Dance, the Jordan documentary, he would say to his teammates, like, stop complaining about getting hit, stop complaining about getting bumped, just go out there and do what you need to do. And I know that it's easier said than done. I get that. But Knox, Kincaid, Shakir, Diggs, like, it's going to be contested catches that they're going to have to make today in tight situations. Josh Allen's going to have to put the ball into tight windows today, and his receivers got to pick him up, right? We saw a drop from Knox last week. I know it didn't end up being consequential, but like, we saw Diggs with drops kind of leading towards the end of this. Like, these guys got to step up and pluck some balls out of the air today and help their quarterback out as well. So again, it's going to happen. We're going to complain about it. We're going to get mad about it. The players need to do a good job of just going out there and taking matters into their own hands and catching the ball when it's put on them.
So let's look at what the Buffalo Bills are rolling out today on offense. Obviously, Gabriel Davis is the only guy missing. The Buffalo Bills have been relatively healthy on offense today. You're going to see a good dose of James Cook. You're likely going to see a healthy dose of Ty Johnson. You're going to see Latavius Murray sprinkled in on passing downs. It'll be interesting to see how much Reggie Gilliam you see in this football game. Obviously, Stephon Diggs, wide receiver 1. Then you have Khalil Shakir, who's been having an outrageously awesome season in the limited number of targets he has received. Trent Sherfield will probably be on the boundary a lot and out there in run blocking situations. Then you also have Deontay Hardy and Andy Isabella. And then obviously Kincaid and Knox each caught touchdowns last week in the offensive line. Dawkins, McGovern, Morse, Torrance, and Brown. They have been consistently starting throughout the entire season, knock on wood. Where else? We've talked about James Cook. We've talked about Josh Allen. Like, what else do you really want to explore with this Buffalo Bills today? What do you think needs to be done in order to score some points on this Chiefs defense?
Well, you start to kind of then take a look at where the Chiefs rank in DVOA against different positions across the field, right? 5th against wide receiver 1s. We know the receivers, the last time the Bills came out against this team, were pretty much inconsequential in the game, right? Diggs 4 for 24, Sherfield 1 catch, Shakir 1 catch, Hardy 1 catch. Gabe Davis had no catches and he's not playing today. The Chiefs don't rank well against wide receiver 2s, but that's usually the second boundary guy according to DVOA. So, like, do I expect Trent Sherfield to make an impact on the boundary? Not necessarily, right? And then they're second against the slot, 10th against tight ends. To me, it's a continuation of like what the Bills did with James Cook the last time they played this team. James Cook led the way with 5 catches for 83 yards and obviously had the touchdown. The Chiefs 21st against running backs as receivers. I think that James Cook has to make an impact, not just in the running game, but in the passing game as well. To me, this sets up for a James Cook feature-esque type of game with efficiency being the name of the game for the receivers and the tight ends. Like, you have to be, you have to make the most of the opportunities today if you're the Bills receivers and tight ends. And I expect that it's going to be tough, right? And I expect that from a game plan perspective, I don't know that the Bills are really going to be. I expect it going to be similar to the last time these teams played. I'll say I think the Chiefs will do a good job against the Bills receivers, especially without Gabe Davis. They'll be able to focus a little bit more on Shakir, who really only had the 1 catch last time. And I think the tight ends, Knox and Kincaid, They made a little bit of an impact last time, and
Yeah.
Cook are going to be that to me is the key today for the Bills offense.
I mean, I'm with you, James Cook, and Joe Brady has shown an affinity for since his time at LSU, getting the running backs involved in the passing game. So we definitely want to see more of that today. And again, it'll be really interesting to see because I think Joe Brady, unless he becomes the Atlanta Falcons head coach, has locked up this offensive coordinator position for the Buffalo Bills heading into next season. It'll be really interesting to see. I don't know, and maybe Eric and maybe Anthony and some of the film guys could tell me I'm wrong in feeling this way, but a lot of times I feel like the Bills just don't draw up things for guys. It's Josh Allen drops back. He has his first option, his second option, his third option, etc. I would love to see the Buffalo Bills cook up some things for Khalil Shakir in this game, getting the ball in his hands for some yak, getting the ball like plays designed to get the ball into the hands of Khalil Shakir. I think a lot of Khalil Shakir stuff that he's getting is just him getting open, him getting the ball, him making plays. I don't think a lot of stuff right now in this offense is designed towards Khalil Shakir. I think at this point he's deserved some of that. So as much as we want to get Diggs involved, as much as we want to pepper Diggs in this football game, I would really love to see Khalil Shakir become more of an emphasis, not just a last resort guy who gets the ball and makes the big play. And we're all like, yay, Khalil, what a great guy. Like make him an emphasis in your offense like you do a Stephon Diggs, like you do a James Cook, like you do a Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, and I mean, he has to be today, right? Because if you think about what the Bills are going to be throwing out there, the more options you have to throw against the Chiefs, the more stress it can put on that defense. Really great to have both Knox and Kincaid, obviously, and the Bills have actually done a pretty good job in kind of using both of them to an extent.
Yeah.
No Gabe Davis, obviously, but the other two non-running back options are Diggs and Shakir, right? So if you want to kind of put stress on this Chiefs defense, who is going to be bringing pressure, is going to maybe be leaving guys covered one-on-one, right? The ball's going to have to come out somewhat quickly from Josh Allen today. Shakir and his route running, right, over the middle of the field, to me, that's crucial. And by the way, good conversation and thread from Kurt Warner yesterday on Twitter, and something that I've mentioned many times here around yards after catch is like the route concepts and the ability to place the ball where it needs to be placed so that guys can catch the ball while on the run has been really important for a guy like Khalil Shakir so far this year. There have been times where he's made really nice adjustments to balls and been able to still kind of catch the ball on the run. Josh Allen's ball placement today to Khalil Shakir to put him in a position where he can run after the catch, to me, is something we need to watch for as well, because when yards are going to be hard to come by, you're going to want to get every last yard you can out of every play. And I think Khalil Shakir can be that guy that can yak it up today if Josh Allen is putting the ball where it needs to be.
And then I think Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid obviously need to continue to be emphasis on this football team. Like it's going to be hard to pass the ball against the Kansas City Chiefs. Like I think they're very, very good against the pass, whether it's because they're generating pressure up front or because their secondary with guys like Trent McDuffie and L'Jarius Sneed are very good at what they do. And Bolton and Gay are very good in pass coverage at linebacker. The Buffalo Bills are, to me, it's run the ball today, and look for chunk plays in the passing game. And Josh Allen's going to have his hot routes available. He's going to need to know where his dump downs are in this football game, because if they apply pressure, he's going to need to be able to get the ball out. And Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Khalil Shakir, James Cook, they all play, in my opinion, a role in that, more so than a Stephon Diggs.
I mean, I 100% agree. It has to be a take what the defense gives you type of day. 3-4 yards on a play, that to me is positive today, right? On first down, if you can get 4 yards, that's positive. On second down, if you can get 5 yards, that's positive. I mean, it's not going to be probably this monumental point outburst from this Bills offense today. Now, I hope I'm wrong, right? I hope they go out there and they put up 31 plus points or whatever it is, but you have to be able to get positive yards on the early downs today. I don't want to see these 1st and 10, deep shots necessarily, and then you come back with a 2nd and 10 run for 1 yard. Like that's not what I'm trying to see today. I'm trying to see efficient where you can be. I want to see what Joe Brady's got in his bag today to scheme some guys like Kincaid and Knox for some easy catches, easier, I should say, because nothing's going to be easy, and get those 5-6 yard plays when they're there. Like that That's what you said at the beginning. Like, get yourself into these 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 1s, 3rd and 3s, and you're going to be generally okay on offense.
Yeah, looking at what the Buffalo Bills need to focus on, I have my offensive line focus, Chris Jones, George Karlaftis. Those guys are two really powerful dudes up front. They both make a lot of plays. They both affect the quarterback. The Buffalo Bills need to pay attention, and the offensive line specifically needs to be paying attention to those two guys. And then what's really difficult, and what I think is going to make today, honestly, a defensive battle, because I think the Buffalo Bills defense, and we'll get to that in a moment, could have some success against the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think this is going to be as high of a scoring game as people think. I mean, Josh Allen has to think about Nick Bolton on every play. He's got to think about Willie Gay on every play. He's got to think about L'Jarius Sneed on every play. And he's got to think about Trent McDuffie on every single play. And you got some pretty decent safeties too, and guys like Justin Reed and Mike Edwards. So the Josh Allen's got a lot to think about today as he drops back to pass, and a lot to process today as he drops back to pass. So I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than people think.
Yeah, I agree. Karlaftis and Chris Jones, both with double digit sacks for this team. You mentioned Josh Allen having to be aware of all these guys. The Chiefs are the 10th best defense and 3rd down conversion rates allowed. They're 7th best against 4th down conversions. So they are a team that can get off the field on 3rd down, and they're a team that doesn't give up a lot of points. So yeah, I'm kind of with you. I don't think this is going to be a super high scoring game. I think if you can get into the 24 to 27 point range, that's a pretty good day if you're the Bills offense. And I would like to think that if you can get into the 27 point range, that could be enough to win this game.
You might have just hit the nail on the head in my game prediction here. But on now to the Buffalo Bills defense versus the Kansas City Chiefs offense. And let's start by just taking a look at what the Chiefs offense has on paper. Obviously, they have Patrick Mahomes, the all-world quarterback. Then they have Isaiah Pacheco back in this game. He did not play when the Buffalo Bills faced the Chiefs in Week 14. With Jerick McKinnon being out, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is the number 2 running back there. Rashee Rice has been coming on late. He's the wide receiver 1. Justin Watson's been getting the 2nd most snaps at wide receiver. Then they got Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Mecole Hardman, and Richie James sprinkled in as well. At tight end, you obviously have Travis Kelce, but they do play a lot of Noah Gray and Blake Bell as well. Along the offensive line, the tackles have been an issue this year with Donovan Smith and Juwan Taylor, but the interior of that offensive line is elite in Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith. To me, the game plan for Kansas City today is pretty simple, and we clearly have a Chiefs fan in the comment section. Everybody, Sudi coming in saying Rashee Rice is going for 150 and 2 tutties today. The game plan to me is pretty simple for the Kansas City Chiefs. It's run the ball, create yards after the catch situations for Rashee Rice, and get the ball into Travis Kelce's hands. Those are the 3 things that you want to do: Pacheco, Rice, Kelce.
Yeah, and it all starts with Pacheco. You mentioned that he wasn't there the last time these two teams played. Look, the rushing stats overall for the season, right? The raw statistics, the Chiefs are the 19th. They're 17th in DVOA, but if you actually kind of zoom in a little bit to their last couple of games since they've had Pacheco back, their last 3 games, including the win against the Dolphins in the wildcard round, the Chiefs have run for 132, 123, and 147 yards in their last 3 games. So to me, priority 1 has to be to not let a guy like Isaiah Pacheco get going. He is a guy that, as the game goes on, gets better with more touches. He is the guy that, as the game gets on, will break bigger runs, because his style of running wears down a defense. And the Bills, as we know, their style, they are a speed and chase, and they're more of I'm not going to say they're not a size defense, but they don't necessarily match up well against a back like Pacheco. So they're going to have to be sure tackling, and it's going to start up front. They have Daquan Jones for this game. Ed Oliver's going to have to be huge. That front for the Bills defense, that front 4, is going to have to set the tone. Just like we said on offense, the Bills O-line has a chance. This is going to be a game about the trenches today, right? I mean, this is no doubt going to be strength on strength with the Chiefs' interior offensive line against the Bills' defensive line. So to me, in order to take advantage of where the Chiefs are weakest, which is on the edges of their offensive line, you have to be good on 1st and 2nd downs against Pacheco, because you want to give your pass rushers a chance to go against guys like Juwan Taylor Wanya Morris, whoever it may be on the edges. So yeah, that interior Bills D-line against the interior Chiefs O-line, probably one of the biggest matchups to watch for in this game.
And Roy Collins comes in and says, as long as Dodson can stay gap sound, they should be well at stopping the run. Yeah. I mean, that's one of the big positives in this game is having a guy like Tyrel Dodson back who is stout against the run, and you can count on as that guy who helps you in the running game. My biggest issue, one I'm still afraid of right now, is if Terrel Bernard cannot go. I don't have any issues with AJ Klein in the run game. I think he'll be fine. But my biggest issue is like, man, when Travis Kelce is on the field, right? Like guys like AJ Klein dropping back into coverage, guys like Tyrel Dodson even dropping back into coverage, even though he's been better. That's my biggest issue. I think if Kansas City is going to attack one thing today, they're going to try to exploit the Buffalo Bills linebackers. And Andy Reid is known for his motion, his misdirection, his screens. I think they're going to try to get the ball into the hands of Pacheco. They're going to try to get the ball in the hands of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They're going to try to get the ball into the hands of Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, in situations that can create yak. And I think they're going to try to exploit these two linebackers in the passing game.
100% agree. We'll see if Taron Johnson gets cleared for this. Obviously, that would be a big boost to the Bills' chances. Rashee Rice playing about 50% of his snaps from the slot, so he is a true inside-out guy. Would expect that he'll probably be playing mostly in the slot today, and that's going to be an area where the Bills are going to have to be super cognizant, right? I mean, Taron Johnson likely going to get the assignment against Rashee Rice if that's the case, but the Bills are going to still be potentially at a disadvantage, right, in covering a guy like Travis Kelce. And I know people have been, it's not been his best year, whatever. That got like you cannot dismiss Travis Kelce, right? Like he's a guy as well, just like Pacheco. If he gets going, if he gets some momentum, if he starts finding these soft spots in the zone against the Bills, like they're just going to get picked apart all day, and Travis Kelce's going to have a big impact. So, yeah. I'm with you. I think that's going to be probably priority, the top priority for Andy Reid. It's Rice, Kelce, Pacheco, and then sprinkling in of others.
Colin comes in and says, assuming Bernard is out, do you think they want Klein or Williams to start? Klein is a veteran, but Williams has speed. AJ Klein 100%, 150, 190%, right? Listen, the thing with Dorian Williams this year is Dorian Williams has made some plays this year, but it's clear that he's probably making mental errors that the Buffalo Bills coaching staff does not appreciate. And that's to be expected from a young player. But we're to the point now where Tyrel Dodson surpassed Dorian Williams. We're at the point now where Balon Spector surpassed Dorian Williams. We're at the point where last week, until Balon Spector got hurt, like AJ Klein, or until Terrel Bernard got hurt, AJ Klein had usurped Dorian Williams. Like, it's clear the Buffalo Bills don't want Dorian Williams on the field. It's nice that he's gotten a lot of snaps this year. So if he is on the field, maybe he's probably more seasoned than he could have been had it not been for the injuries. But it's clear the Buffalo Bills do not want Dorian Williams on the field, at least not in the year 2024. Now, or excuse me, 2023, 2024 season. Now, that being said, I wouldn't go throwing around words, and then not that you have, William, but like other people are like, well, Dorian Williams is going to be a bust. I can't believe they don't trust Dorian Williams. We wasted a third round pick. I would take a deep breath on that, just because that same conversation we had about Terrel Bernard last year, right? Like, development isn't linear, and the Buffalo Bills, they do some very complicated things with their linebackers. So a guy like AJ Klein, who's been in the system for 4 years, a guy like Tyrel Dodson, who's been in the system for 4 years, even a guy like Balon Spector, who's been in the system for 2 years, they're probably more inclined to do some of the things that the Buffalo Bills want them to do mentally, play the game a little faster than that the Buffalo Bills coaching staff wants, than a guy like Dorian Williams. And that doesn't mean that next year Dorian Williams can't be that dude. It's just right now, I think he's probably not there, coming from what Brandon Beane said in his draft press conference, a very vanilla defense at Tulane, where they just ask the guys to just run and tackle, run and chase. Not so much in the NFL and not so much with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, and I think Dorian Williams athletically is a very nice profile for the Bills defense to work with now, with what we've seen Sean McDermott do and sort of transitioning to a little bit more aggressive style, fitting guys into roles that maybe weren't traditionally had, right, from the Leslie Frazier days. So I think there's still a lot of potential with Dorian Williams. I just don't think the trust and development is there yet. You've seen flashes of it, but I think in a game of this magnitude, they're going to go with the guys they trust a bit more. Even if athletically maybe they're not to the caliber of a Dorian Williams. The Bills are in a position where they're going to really want to trust guys that they're going to be in the right positions, and that is probably going to hold more water today than anything.
Looking at some of the Chiefs' tendencies, they're base 11 personnel. So they run 11 personnel the majority of the time. But they also are sixth in the NFL in usage of 12 personnel, bringing Noah Gray onto the field, and fourth in the league in the usage of 13 personnel, bringing in Noah Gray and Blake Bell. So they will utilize their tight ends in this football game. They are fifth in the use of motion. They are sixth in the use of RPO, and they are third in the percentage of screen passes utilized. For the Kansas City Chiefs, creating yards after the catch is key. So for the Buffalo Bills, tackling and communication is a must. And the two players I think to watch out for the most in terms of Yak, Clyde Edwards-Helaire when he's in the game. I think they're going to try to get him involved in the screen game. And obviously in the passing game, they're going to try to get Rashee Rice the ball with some green grass in front of him.
One of the best Yak guys in the league this year, not just as a rookie, but overall in the entire NFL, Rashee Rice. And we saw it again against the Dolphins in that wild card game last week, him catching the ball horizontally and then working his way up the field. And, this is a lot of what the Chiefs used to do with Tyreek Hill. Now, completely different type of player, but conceptually, it's a very similar approach for them, right? And kind of getting Rice the ball on the move with his ability to move upfield. Not something he necessarily did a lot of in college, right? In college, he was more of a kind of contested catch type of deep route type of guy. And so the Chiefs have used him differently than how he was used in college, and he's thriving. Just under 1,000 yards on the season. He obviously had the 7 touchdowns. So whatever you want to say about how you felt about him pre-draft, he is a problem in this game. And I think, I know he's going to be priority 1, but guys like Justin Watson, right? Guys like Noah Gray, don't be surprised if those guys are beneficiaries of the Bills putting extra attention on a guy like Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce. Those guys, while not world beaters, have made impacts as well.
Looking at some other tendencies, the Chiefs are fifth in the NFL at 38% in running into a light box. So I wonder today if the Buffalo Bills are going to maybe crowd the line of scrimmage, much in the way that the Kansas City Chiefs crowd the line of scrimmage, and sort of disguise who's coming at the quarterback and who's dropping back into coverage as a way to maybe de-incentivize the Kansas City Chiefs from trying to run the football, because they've shown a propensity, fifth most in the NFL, of, you got 6 guys in the box, we're going to run it down your throat.
Yeah, and I mean, this is where the mental side of the game comes in as well, right? Is Isaiah Pacheco, he's rarely going to lose yards, right? He's almost always going to fall forward. The Bills can't be making contact, letting a guy like Pacheco fall forward for another 3-4 yards. They have to be bringing him down at first contact and not letting him get those cheap extra yards, right? And to me, that's goes back to the very first thing we talked about, is on first down, second downs, you got to hold the Chiefs to 3 yards or less if you can. Put them in second and longs immediately, and it starts with stopping Pacheco. And to me, mentally, this is huge, right? The Bills have to be sure tackling. The Bills absolutely cannot give up these cheap yards to Pacheco, especially because in years past, we've talked about a guy like Tyron Matthew, right, on the Chiefs defense being the emotional sort of jolt for them. Don't let him make a play. Don't let him get the juices flowing and kind of get everyone fired up. The same is now true for Isaiah Pacheco on the Chiefs. He is that emotional jolt for them. If he gets rolling, he is going to be demonstrative. He is going to fire up that team. He is really, outside of Patrick Mahomes, the emotional leader on that offense. So cannot let that become a factor.
Looking at some of the matchups to watch for the Buffalo Bills today, Leonard Floyd, Gregory Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, and dare I say Von Miller, who looked like he had a little bit of juice last week, versus these Kansas City Chiefs offensive tackles. I think that's an advantage for the Buffalo Bills, and you mentioned it. The Bills got to do their jobs on first and second down to put themselves in a position to be able to pin their ears back and go after Patrick Mahomes with these edge rushers on third down.
Yeah, and this is the game, right, where if you were hoping for a Von Miller coming out party all year, mean, this would be the one, right? You've got Leonard Floyd, you got AJ Epinesa, Von Miller in his career, second most sacks against any team is the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, a lot of that's obviously because he played with the Denver Broncos for most of his career, but he was a big time. He made some big time plays and late in games against the Kansas City Chiefs over the course of his career as a Denver Bronco. So, man, there's a little bit of momentum for Von Miller. He's had some good reps the last few weeks. Can he be a Chief killer one more time and make a big impact play in this game? In the matchup's there for him, right? The matchup is there for him to take advantage. He's likely going to be going up against Jawan Taylor in his reps. So you would like to think that's an advantage for the Bills. And so can he get home? Can he make a big play today? Obviously, the big concern there stylistically is that you hope he doesn't over pursue on a wide angle and then just Patrick Mahomes steps up and runs, which could happen. That's got to be the one thing to watch out for. But you'd like to think the Bills have an advantage when it comes to pass rushing downs on defense.
Looking at, again, just the Chiefs on paper, the Bills have been, most of the league is bad on the interior of their offensive line. I mean, let's just face it. Most teams, a good number of teams are bad or average on the interior of their offensive line. And that's why interior defensive linemen are, the new craze. Go out and get your interior disruptors. And the Bills have theirs in Ed Oliver, who has been highly successful this season. But he's going up against a different beast this week in the Kansas City Chiefs and Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith and Joe Thuney. So I think another matchup to watch is, can Ed Oliver create against the stacked interior offensive line? I think having Daquan Jones back in this game is going to really help him do so.
It's huge, right? I mean, I don't know I probably Pacheco, right? But I don't know, like, as far as the Bills and the Chiefs respectively getting their sort of like these guys who are going to go head to head back, Daquan Jones on the Bills defensive front against Isaiah Pacheco on the Chiefs offensive front. Yeah, you would not want to go into this game without a guy like Daquan Jones. It would feel probably pretty similar to how we went into that game against the Bengals last year when Joe Mixon just ran all over us. And you could see that maybe being the case without Daquan Jones today. But Daquan, Ed Oliver next to each other. Look, every week we've said those guys need to show up. And by and large, every week those guys have showed up this season, right? I mean, Ed Oliver has showed up all year. Daquan, when he's been in the lineup, has shown up all year. And there's no reason for me right now, even in a tough matchup, to expect that they won't. But they still need to, right? They can't just go through the motions, and I don't think they will. They will show up and they will have an impact.
Looking at the Buffalo Bills Week 14 matchup against the Chiefs, and again, the regular season and the postseason are two completely different things. The Buffalo Bills, per PFF, were able to accumulate 25 pressures. They sacked Patrick Mahomes 2 times. They had 7 hits and 16 hurries. So the Buffalo Bills had a lot of success getting to and affecting Patrick Mahomes the last time they played. Gregory Rousseau led the way with 5 pressures, a sack, and a hit, and 3 hurries. Ed Oliver was right behind him, 4 total pressures, a sack, 3 hurries. And then behind them was Leonard Floyd with 4 total pressures and 3 hurries as well. Von Miller had probably his best game of the regular season, 3 total pressures, 2 quarterback hits, and a hurry in that game. So looking at this, you really need to see this defensive line affect the football game. That is what the Buffalo Bills need from their defense. If they're going to be successful today, this defensive line, not just in the run game, but in the passing game, needs to affect this Kansas City Chiefs team. I think they will have some success doing that today, and that's why I think this game is going to be lower scoring than people think.
Yeah, and I think there's an advantage, I think, for the Bills on the edges. I'd say interior, it's a push, right? I think the Chiefs have such a good interior, but the Bills really do have a great interior defensive line as well. So I'll give that as a push, but I think the Bills do have the advantage on the edges. So you're right, like, get them into 3rd and longs. It is a really good matchup, this Chiefs offensive line against the Bills defensive line. So get yourself into a situation where you do have the advantage into these 3rd and longs. AJ tip drill. So AJ Epinesa and Gregory Rousseau, right? I mean, that's huge.
Literally last game, AJ Epinesa, and I missed it because of CBS's stupid broadcasting rules.
Yeah, me too.
AJ had one big play in that game, and he ended up injuring his ribs and missing weeks because of it. But he had that tip drill interception. So yeah, AJ Epinesa too, talking about containing Patrick Mahomes, keeping him in the pocket, and then, getting your hands up, batting balls, making plays in that way. That is something that AJ Epinesa, we're going to have him for a full game this time, as opposed to, 5 plays like we did in the last game. So that should be an advantage for the Buffalo Bills as well. We already talked about it a little bit, but linebackers versus Travis Kelce is definitely something that concerns me, or even Taron Johnson versus Travis Kelce. The designed yak plays we already talked about a little bit as well in terms of matchups. But in covering Kelce, like, what do you think the Bills are going to do today? We've seen them use Saran Neal in the past. We've seen them use Taron Johnson in the past. We've seen them use Matt Milano in the past. How do you think the Buffalo Bills go about covering Travis Kelce today?
I don't think they have a great answer, right? Because if you
Dave, you're not supposed to say that.
I know, but look, if you had Terrel Bernard in this game, I think things would be a little bit different, right? Because then between Bernard and Taron Johnson, you could maybe figure out some creative ways for those two guys to be the primary coverage guys on Rice and Kelce one way or another, and then kind of help otherwise. Without Bernard, or a limited Bernard, a lot's going to end up falling on Taron Johnson's shoulders, whether that's against Rice or Kelce. So I do think that, again, no Taylor Rapp in this game. It's gonna challenge the Buffalo Bills, right? And I think that Jordan Poyer is gonna play a role when it comes to this. Maybe even Micah Hyde, right? And maybe it's a situation where the Bills do a little bit something a little bit more creative, right? Where the Chiefs, they've had their issues with their deep balls as well this year. Scantling not being able to hold the ball. They haven't necessarily connected a ton. How much are the Bills willing to risk on potentially giving up a deep shot down the field to maybe bring Micah Hyde into the mix a bit to cover a guy like Travis Kelce? It'll be interesting, but I don't really necessarily think they have a great answer. I think the Bills are going to have to choose whether they want Taron Johnson to kind of be matched up with Rice or Kelce. I think it'll be Rice. So that's going to leave a huge advantage for the Chiefs with Travis Kelce, I think, in the middle of the field. So it's going to probably be all hands on deck, a combination of Dodson, a combination of Jordan Poyer. I don't love the options, whether it's Saran Neal either. I don't love the options.
Pass rush cures a lot of these ills. So the Buffalo Bills need to get at Patrick Mahomes today. And Taylor Rapp being out plays a huge role. And you mentioned Jordan Poyer. Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, this is their last dance likely for the Buffalo Bills, right? So I'm not saying that they've been bad by any means this year, but they've certainly shown their age this season. It'll be interesting to see if they can turn back the clocks and are extra motivated, knowing that these are their last couple, of games here in Buffalo. This is probably at least Micah Hyde's last game in Orchard Park. It might be Jordan Poyer's as well if he becomes a cap casualty this offseason. The Buffalo Bills decide to hard reset at that position. So it'll be really interesting. I think you'll see an extra motivated Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer today. And I think we're going to see them rewind the clocks a little bit and have some success and impact this game.
I mean, that would be ideal, right? I mean, like, these guys, like, if they're saving anything, it's got to be for this game, right? If they're saving anything, it's got to be for this game. That Hyde and Poyer want to see this through to what they set out to do, which was ultimately like win a Super Bowl. But a win like this today for them could also just mean so much to those two guys playing together, especially because they may not be on the field together again, playing together again, beyond obviously this season, but even beyond today. So lay it all on the line today, but you got to be smart, right? And like, it is nice to have those two guys back there. Yes, they've lost a step. Yes, there's been some questionable moments for them this year, but mentally, you like what you have back there with those two guys. And I think that in a playoff game can't be understated. The mental aspect of kind of knowing where to be, the communication, all that is an advantage, right, for the Bills.
And this is going to be a tight game. So the last thing we're going to talk about here is special teams, and three phases matter. And in these tight games, you look back at complementary football, right? We want to make sure we have the best field position in this game. We want to make sure we start the ball closer to the other team's end zone than they start towards our end zone. And turnovers has a lot to do with that, and special teams has a lot to do with that. So field position is going to be really important in this game. Turnovers is going to be really important in this game. Time of possession is going to be really important in this game. But then going back to special teams outside of field position, every point matters. So Tyler Bass versus Harrison Butker is going to be really important in this game. One of these kickers misses a field goal or two, that could be the game. I don't really think you're going to see a lot of pop out of Deontay Hardy or Richie James in the return game, but a big return a toxic differential play on special teams could really turn the tide and be the difference in this game. So all eyes on special teams. You got to be fundamentally sound, and when there's a chance to pin a team back deep, you got to do it. If there's a chance to get a big return and flip field position, you need it. And if there's a chance to kick a field goal, you got to make it. And that goes for both teams in this football game. And on top of all that, you got Sam Martin's injury to monitor as well.
Yeah, Sam Martin's injury, although, I mean, the Bills look like they're going to be pretty confident with putting him out there, even though he won't be 100%. Harrison Butker has been one of the best kickers in the league this year, and has been really good in the playoffs over the course of his career.
He's been a fantasy staple for me for half a decade now.
And Tyler Bass coming off a little bit of a shaky effort last week, right? The block, and then the dead yank. You wonder what's going through his head a bit. I think that, to me, I mean, in DVOA wise, the Chiefs rank better than the in special teams as well. I do think the Chiefs do have a slight advantage in special teams. I don't think that the game being in Orchard Park necessarily gives the Bills advantage in the kicking game, because Butker's obviously been kicking in super cold weather and in pretty difficult conditions in Kansas City over the course of his career. So, look, I know, like, we made Justin Tucker look more mortal a couple years ago in Orchard Park, but the winds were howling that day. And I think that going into this game, a missed kick, it really could be the difference in the outcome. And you hope it doesn't come to that, but I do think the Chiefs do have a slight advantage, I think, in special teams today.
All right, before we get to our pregame superlatives, this show is brought to you by Picasso's Pizza. 4 great locations in Williamsville, West Seneca, Lancaster, and Blaisdell. Buffalo Pizza since 1980. You can order online at picassospizza.net. And if you're an out-of-towner like us, you can even get it mailed to your home. And I can tell you from experience, it is just as good as getting it fresh from the restaurant. Again, that is picassospizza.net. And yeah, like I said, the tailgates today are going to be rough in Orchard Park with the frigid temperatures, all the snow on the ground. It's going to be a lot more difficult to get all the cooking supplies out there. So just do it the old-fashioned way. Get yourself a metal dumpster. Get yourself a little grate to put over that metal dumpster and reheat a Picasso's pizza. Some wood-fire Picasso's pizza should keep you nice and warm during the tailgate today in Buffalo. That's my little
Little tip there.
Tidbit for you. Yeah. Who comes in and said, can we mail that pizza to Florida? Yes. You can go on to picassospizza.net and you can get it mailed anywhere in the continental United States. And you and I have gotten pizza delivered to us from Picasso's, complimentary. Thank you guys. We appreciate it. And I'll tell you what, it tastes, once you heat it up in the oven, it tastes just like you ordered it, man. It is pretty good. And throwing it in the air fryer is pretty solid as well.
Yeah. I've always thought that they have one of the best frozen to heated versions of pizza of any pizza I've had. So yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's get into our pregame superlatives now. Let's start with our Take Me Higher player of the game. And this is the one Buffalo Bills player that just needs to completely elevate their game today for the Buffalo Bills to have a chance to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Dave, I'll start with you. I feel like you're probably going to take the same player that I take, but I'm going to go with that same player anyway, because I just feel like this is probably the most important player outside of Josh Allen to the game today. But maybe you'll surprise me here. What was your Take Me Higher player of the game?
Do you want to go first? Because
no. You get to go first. You get to go first.
Yeah,
you're good.
I think you can go a lot of directions here. You could go at Oliver. You could say that he's key into kind of setting the tone on defense.
Yeah.
You could go Stephon Diggs as the alpha, having to step up against a tough matchup. But I think it has to be James Cook, right? I mean, to me, James Cook has to match and do more than what Isaiah Pacheco does on the other side for the Kansas City Chiefs. In my heart, in my gut, I feel like this is going to be a game that whatever team runs the ball better is going to win. And I feel also in my gut that the Chiefs are going to be able to run the ball a bit against the Bills. So the Bills offensive line and James Cook have to step up today. And this comes down to Joe Brady as well, too, right? You have to be able to look at this matchup, take advantage of where you have a plus matchup, and James Cook has to be a workhorse today. I said it in the comments section just a few minutes ago. Like, if the Bills can do today what they did to Dallas, I would just be like absolutely thrilled with that. Now, I think it's going to be tougher than that, but I do think it has to be James Cook. He's got to be the dude today.
Yeah.
If you start to kind of compare the two, him and Pacheco.
Yeah. Brendan P comes in, says Groot, got to take me higher. Charles G, I like this one. He says the interior offensive line. Roy Collins says Tyler Bass, game-winning 51-yard field goal. A couple of votes for Von Miller as well. I think the way Von Miller's played this year, I think that'd be more wild card. But normally I have a secondary option, but I just think that this player is just too important to what the Buffalo Bills have to do today. So I'm just going to reiterate what you said. James Cook is my take me higher player of the game as well. The Buffalo Bills need someone other than Josh Allen to step up and to carry the weight. Cook popped off in the passing game the last time they played Kansas City. He only had 10 carries, though. That is not enough. You mentioned the Dallas game. I think James Cook needs 20 to 25 touches in this one between catching and running the football. He needs to be the focal point of this offense today. So James Cook to me is the take me higher player of the game. That leads us to our wild card player of the game. This is a player that maybe will surprise little people like Von Miller possibly and step up their game today and help the Buffalo Bills to victory against the Kansas City Chiefs. Dave, who's your wild card player of the game?
Yeah, this one's tough. I think I'm going to go. I mean, he's probably maybe earned the right to be somewhat considered to take me higher, but I think just given the horses the Bills have and just some of the, the rotation that the Bills have, I'm going to say AJ Epinesa. I think we saw him make that big play in the last time these two teams played, and then he left the game with that injury, right? But made an impact early and kind of flipped things for the Bills early in that game where the Chiefs had been moving the ball pretty well early in that game. And the Bills really needed some momentum shift. I think getting his hands up, batting a ball on the opposite side of Greg Rousseau, who I think the two of them combined, I think are going to have to be really important. So to me, Greg Rousseau is kind of more in the take me higher vein. I'll say AJ Epinesa maybe is more in the wild card vein, and I'll say AJ Epinesa today. A big sack, maybe a big batted ball can be a wild card player for the Bills.
I like Carolina Frank. He says Deontay Hardy. Hey, Deontay Hardy made a big play against Miami in the punt return game. He had a big catch last week. Maybe that continues again this week. Tim A comes in and says Tyrel Dodson, wild card player of the game. That would be awesome. Brendan P sort of reiterates with Tyrel Dodson, again, big against the run. Justin Calhoun comes in and says, hey, another big Khalil Shakir play possibly in this football game as well.
He's taking me higher territory now for me. He's up there.
But here's the thing: at the rate he gets targeted, I don't know.
True. Fair enough.
He takes so much advantage of his targets, but he's so targeted so little that I feel like it is still wild card because you don't know whether he's gonna get that ball or not. We had that conversation earlier. If you guys want to rewind it, if you missed it, but Carl Tolman comes into the super chat. I always appreciate super chatters and I always appreciate you, Carl. He says this is the first time that Mahomes and the Chiefs are in Highmark Stadium in the playoffs. The Mafia is the 12th man for being loud. They are the player of the game. Make some noise. I agree. We talked about that at the top of the show, the importance of Bills Mafia. You saw all the pre-snap penalties that the Houston Texans took against the Ravens and how that set them back and allowed the Ravens to really pull away in the second half. Bills Mafia needs to be the same, right? They worked their asses off all week, shoveling the snow out of that stadium. Everyone's seat should be cleared. You can do the little pounding on the back of the bleachers, right? You can make all the noise you need to. There was a lot of love for AT&T Stadium and the Baltimore Ravens Stadium yesterday and how loud it is, how much noise they make. Bills Mafia needs to go and they need to top it in this one. All right, my wild card player of the game. I'm going to double down on the running game. I'm going Ty Johnson.
Nice.
I'm going Ty Johnson as my wild card player of the game. I was actually during the commercials last night of Packers 49ers. They were showing the Chiefs Bills Week 14 game on NFL Network, and I don't remember this, but on the Bills' last offensive drive where they kicked the go-ahead field goal, Ty Johnson was the running back on that drive, and I just completely sort of that escaped my mind. And Ty Johnson didn't have a big game that game, but I just think the way that this Chiefs team is constructed, I think the Buffalo Bills need to run the ball with not just consistency, but they need to run the ball with volume. They need to make this the point of emphasis today. And then in the passing game, they need to win by creating toxic differential, right? Run the ball, set up play action, create some toxic differential, some big plays in the passing game. In the running game, you want volume. In the passing game, you want quality, right? That's, I think, what the Buffalo Bills game plan today needs to be. Run the ball down their throats and then hit them over the top. make those big plays in the passing game. And I think Ty Johnson will play a big, big role in that. So if you're the Buffalo Bills, I think 15 plus carries for James Cook, 10 plus carries for Ty Johnson, and getting Josh Allen involved in the running game. I really do think a 30 to 40 type of run game is needed for the Buffalo Bills today. And let me just go back into my notes here. The first time they played them, they ran the ball 28 times. So give me 35. I want 35 carries from the Buffalo Bills offense today between the four guys that they have typically running the football. All right, Dave, on to our respect you player of the game. Who is the one or maybe two players in the Kansas City Chiefs that you feel like really need to be respected in order for the Buffalo Bills to have success in this football game?
Yeah, I think Mahomes, Kelsey, Chris Jones, they're all in like kind of Josh Allen category where it's like it goes without saying. Those three guys are absolutely like respect you, whatever, right? Like we don't even really need to dwell on that because they're already in there. To me, I think it's Rashee Rice. I think we talked about Pacheco a lot, and he's probably up there too. But I think the Chiefs, outside of Kelsey, have really gotten a lot out of Rashee Rice, especially in the second half of the season. And I think if the Bills are going to have success on these 3rd and longs, if they can get the Chiefs into 3rd and longs, they need to kind of make the Chiefs a little bit one-dimensional in the sense that like only give them one option in the passing game, right? Like if it's Rice and Kelsey, they're going to have options, and you don't want the Chiefs to be converting a ton of 3rd downs today. And what scares me is the thought of possibly Taron Johnson being out, and obviously the possibility of Terrel Bernard being out, and Rashee Rice just having his run of the middle of the field and allowing to get yak from him. So I'm going to say Rashee Rice. He scares me. I think you got to respect him. And just because he's a rookie doesn't mean he's not been able to make an impact. So for me, it's Rice.
Yeah, Brendan P comes in with George Karlaftis. I agree with that. Spin 0481 comes in and says Pacheco need to keep him in check. 100% agree with that. Charles G, I like this one. He says Steve Spagnuolo. And I think that's important too. Like, just like I cheat all the time and pick coaches, right? So nothing wrong with you guys cheating as well, picking Steve Spagnuolo, because the guy just has a propensity for coming up with some really clutch game plans when his teams need it, whether it's the New York Giants in the Super Bowls against the New England Patriots or it's the Kansas City Chiefs over the course of the years. I mean, he's just so good at what he does. He gets more with less, and guess what? Now he has more. Like, he has the dudes, and two of these dudes are my respect you player of the game, and that is one guy who's questionable for this game late, Willie Gay, and Nick Bolton. These two linebackers scare the shite out of me. They are big, they are physical, they are athletic, they can shoot the gap, and they can blitz the quarterback. They are stout in the run game. You can drop them back into coverage. They can go sideline to sideline. A lot of what the Kansas City Chiefs do is centered around what Nick Bolton and Willie Gay can do. So those two guys are my respect you player of the game. I have so much respect for just the athleticism and the things that they can do and the things that they allow that defense to do in Kansas City. And kudos to their GM, Brett Veach, for going out and getting those two dudes for Steve Spagnuolo over the years. All right, fire sale. This is our hottest take of the game. Dave, what is your hottest take of this football game? In comment section, hit us up with your hottest take of this football game.
Yeah, hot take of the game. James Cook leads the Bills in receiving and rushing yards in this game on his way to a 20-plus touch effort, and he, very similarly to how he was in the last game, did lead the way in both categories. But I do think today it is in a 20-plus touch effort from him, and he leads both in receiving yards, catches, and rushing yards for the Bills today. James Cook going to be the workhorse today.
Brendan P comes in with his hot take. He says 3 turnovers for the Buffalo Bills defense. Tim Anderson says special teams unit gives up a big return. I hope not. I really hope not. No Doubt comes in and says no punts. Ryan Jack comes in and says Allen throws for 400 yards on top of an 80-yard catch and run touchdown from Cook. And Justin Calhoun comes in and says Von Miller, 2 sacks. This
I like
is
that
take of the day.
I would really like that.
I'm just going to repeat last week's because I feel like it happened last week because I said it would happen last week. Josh Allen, 0 turnovers. That is my hot take of the game. I'm going to stick with it just for consistency standpoint, just for luck standpoint, superstition standpoint, whatever you want to call it. All right, time to head back to the future, Dave, with our game predictions. I'll start with you, and then the comment section hit us up. Paint a picture for us. How does this football game end? Are we happy or sad when the clock strikes 0 at the end of this football game?
I think it's a little bit nervy in the beginning of this game. I think the offense gets out of the gate slow. I think you could see a 3-and-out early in the game for this offense. I think you could see maybe the Chiefs move the ball a bit early in this game on offense as well with Pacheco. But I do think McDermott, as he's done all year, will make some adjustments. The Bills will adjust to the Chiefs offense, see what they're throwing at them. And ultimately, the Bills will need to commit and continue to commit to that run game with James Cook. Big day for Joe Brady, right? I mean, this is, you just interviewed for the Falcons head coaching position. If you want to be seriously considered either for a head coaching job or with the removal of that interim tag for next year as the Bills offensive coordinator, this is a moment for you, Joe Brady, to show that you can rise to the occasion and not succumb to the pressure, obviously going head to head on the other side with one of the greatest of all time in Andy Reid as your counterpart play caller for the Chiefs. So I do think it's a nervy start to this game. I think there's a lot of jabs and gut punches throughout. I think it's a close game throughout. Ultimately, I think the Bills will do enough at home and the Mafia will be the difference at home, and the Bills win 27-24.
That's the exact same score prediction I had.
Hey, look.
Fluffy Panda comes in and says hot takes. Mahomes 0 touchdowns, 2 turnovers. Josh Allen is the next. John Elway comes in and says Buffalo 44-17. Yo Swooty, the Chiefs fan in the chat, comes in and says hot take. Bills score 1 touchdown on a game. I hope not. Yo Swooty, but I appreciate you being in here today. All the love for Chiefs Kingdom, just not today. Justin Calhoun comes in and says Bills 37-17. Charles G comes in and says 24-23 Bills. Man, that would make me poop my pants. Ryan Jack comes in and says 31-20 Buffalo. We got Spin coming in saying 35-24 Bills, 1 possession game towards the end of the fourth quarter, but Bills extend the lead to 2 possessions. That would make me feel real good. I would like that to happen. Steve Noble comes in and says Bills 28, Chiefs 20. Monkey business. He's not monkeying around. He says 41-0 Bills.
Could you imagine? But just could you imagine a 40? I mean, that's just
that'd be great. Yo Swooty follows up his prediction with his hot take with a 28-13 Chiefs prediction. All right. So my prediction in this game, and Tim Anderson comes in with not Tim Anderson, just Tim A. We just like to think it's Tim Anderson behind that keyboard there. 20-16 Bills, RC3 31, 21 Bills, Josh Allen on a heater. All right. My prediction, Bills 27, Chiefs 24. I think it's a tight back and forth game. I think both teams are at some point in this game going to leave points on the board throughout because these are very good defenses. So I think you'll see both teams march past the 50-yard line and leave without points for whatever reason. But I think the Bills are at home. So I think the pendulum swings. And I think it's not Patrick Mahomes who gets the ball last. I think it's Josh Allen who gets the ball last. Down 24-20. And he leads a game-winning drive and throws a tutty with the time ticking off the clock, and the Buffalo Bills win this game 27-24. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this morning. If you know anyone who would appreciate or like this pregame show, number one, smash that like for us because it helps us get us in front of more eyeballs. Helps us with the algorithm, and also click that share button as well and text or email this to friends, family, anyone you think would enjoy this Cover One Buffalo Bills pregame show. Before we close out things out here tonight, Dave, or this morning, Dave, the Chiefs, they got Taylor Swift. I don't know. I haven't heard any news about whether Taylor Swift will be in Buffalo today or not. I know that she skipped over Buffalo to do her concert in Toronto. So some extra motivation, I think, for Bills Mafia today as Taylor Swift doesn't appreciate Buffalo. But we got Peppa the Pig. I don't know if you've seen or heard, but Peppa the Pig is making an appearance at Highmark Stadium today. So take that, Taylor. We got Peppa.
Yeah, we got Peppa Pig. And for all this talk about the Bills being at home and Patrick Mahomes going on the road for the first time ever, and the Chiefs, one of their worst years offensively, pretty much everyone in the national media and otherwise is picking the Chiefs to win this game. So if you can find a chip on your shoulder if you're the Bills and see that, then take that chip and put it on your shoulder. The people thinking that Patrick Mahomes is somehow being disrespected, it's unreal to me. I think out of all the picks I've seen kind of come across my feeds, it's been like 80 to 90% of the people have been picking the Chiefs as far as media types. So Jason says, sacrifice Peppa to the pit so we can win the Super Bowl. Hey, look, won't bother me. Won't bother me to do that. So go right ahead.
Daddy, why does the pit smell like bacon?
Oh, God.
Brendan P also says that Taylor Swift gonna get the Tequila Spike suite. I hope so. Like, do the Bills roll all the stops for Taylor Swift? Like, how does that even work when it's the opposing team stadium? I don't even know.
Well, if they want her to come back and do a concert in the new stadium in a couple of years, they probably
that's true.
They probably
Taylor's just waiting for the new stadium. That's why she's not coming to Buffalo. But all right, catch us tomorrow night 9 p.m. And don't forget that you can also catch the Cover One post-game show live tonight following the game with Greg and Aaron. They will have you covered. And I'll tell you what, whether we win or whether we lose, I think Greg and Aaron, they continue to shatter records. Every week I turn on their post-game show and their numbers are just incredible. The number of people who turn in and watch those guys, and deservedly so. They are awesome at what they do. We love riding their coattails here at the Air Raid Hour, doing our pregame show. I think they're going to break some records tonight, win or lose. Hopefully it's in a win for the sake of their sanity. And David Fox will also have his post-game report on cover1.football immediately following the game as well. So, all right, Bills Mafia, prepare yourself for the anxiety of the afternoon window. You get to watch a little Detroit Lions football. And then we'll all see you tomorrow. Until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Thank you for watching tonight's episode of the Air Raid Hour. Make sure to hit that like button on the way out. If you are catching the show on demand, leave a reply in the comments section and we will respond over the course of the week. You can always listen to every episode next day on all major podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify, by searching Air Raid Buffalo. Thank you for your continued support, and as always, go Bills!